What happens when two of America's most beloved voices clash in a way nobody saw coming? It only took 21 seconds for a friendly conversation to explode into one of the most shocking confrontations in daytime television history, ending with a country music legend walking off the set in anger. Before we dive into this unbelievable moment, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the confrontations celebrities don't want you to see, and the explosive moments that shake the entertainment world. Hit that subscribe button because you won't believe what we uncover next. Last night on The Kelly Clarkson Show, what was supposed to be a celebration of Dolly Parton's incredible career turned into an absolute disaster that left the audience gasping and the crew scrambling. This wasn't just an awkward moment or a slight disagreement. This was a full-blown argument between two superstars that spiraled completely out of control. Dolly Parton walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, wearing one of her signature sparkly outfits that caught every light in the studio and made her shine like a diamond. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled in that iconic way everyone recognizes, her makeup flawless, that famous smile lighting up the entire studio. The audience was on their feet, cheering wildly for the country music icon who has brought joy to millions of people for decades. Kelly Clarkson greeted her with a warm hug, both women smiling broadly for the cameras, and everything seemed absolutely perfect. The energy was positive, the crowd was excited, and nobody in that room could have predicted what was about to unfold in the next few minutes. They settled into their comfortable chairs, still smiling and laughing, the chemistry between them appearing warm and genuine. Kelly started with what seemed like completely harmless questions about Dolly's new projects, asking about her theme park, Dollywood, her latest music releases, her various business ventures. Dolly answered with her usual charm and humor, telling hilarious stories and heartwarming anecdotes that had the audience laughing out loud and hanging on every single word. She talked about growing up poor in Tennessee, about her journey to stardom, about the people who helped her along the way. For the first several minutes, everything was going exactly as planned, exactly as everyone expected. This was the Dolly Parton everyone knew and loved, warm and funny and genuine and down to earth. She made jokes, she sang a little bit, she talked about her husband of many years. The audience was eating it up, loving every second. Kelly seemed relaxed and happy, genuinely enjoying the conversation. The crew members were smiling, the cameras were rolling smoothly, and this looked like it was going to be another successful, feel-good episode. But then something shifted in the air, something subtle but noticeable. Kelly's expression changed, becoming more serious, more focused. She leaned forward with a different kind of energy, and anyone paying close attention could sense that the tone was about to change dramatically. She shifted the conversation in a different direction, away from the light and fun topics they'd been discussing. Kelly's tone changed, becoming more pointed, more challenging, more aggressive than it had been just moments before. "Dolly, I have to ask you about some of the choices you've made with your brand recently," Kelly said, her voice taking on an edge that cut through the previously warm atmosphere. "Some people are saying you've sold out, that you've compromised your values for money, that you're not the same Dolly Parton who stood for authenticity and staying true to yourself." The smile on Dolly's face faltered for just a moment, a flicker of surprise crossing her features. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing immediately that something had changed. This wasn't the light, fun conversation they had expected when they came to see these two beloved stars together. Dolly's expression became guarded, her posture straightening slightly, her eyes narrowing just a bit. "Well, honey, I'm not sure what you're referring to exactly," Dolly replied, her voice still polite, but noticeably cooler than it had been seconds ago. "I've always made decisions that I felt were right for me and my businesses. I've worked too hard to let other people dictate my choices." Kelly pressed forward, not backing down even an inch. "But you've partnered with companies that some people find problematic, haven't you? You've made deals that seem to go against everything you've stood for your entire career. How do you justify that to your fans who feel betrayed by these choices. The temperature in the studio seemed to drop 10 degrees in an instant. Dolly sat up straighter in her chair, her body language shifting from relaxed to defensive. Her southern charm was starting to crack under the pressure of Kelly's increasingly aggressive questions. Betrayed? That's a pretty strong word, Kelly. That's actually a really hurtful word to use. I've never betrayed anyone in my life. I've worked my entire life to build something meaningful, to create opportunities for people, to help communities, to make a difference. Every decision I make is carefully considered and thought through. Kelly wasn't letting it go, pushing even harder. But money talks, doesn't it? When you're offered enough money, it seems like principles become negotiable, at least from an outside perspective. At least, that's what some people are saying about you and your recent business decisions. Dolly's face flushed slightly, a pink color rising in her cheeks, her jaw tightening visibly. The audience was completely silent now, all eyes fixed on these two women, sensing the tension building like a storm cloud. Some people, or you, Kelly, because it sounds like you're the one with the problem here, not some anonymous people. You invited me on your show, and now you're attacking me with these questions? Is this what you planned all along? Kelly shifted in her seat, her face showing that she clearly wasn't expecting Dolly to push back so strongly and so directly. I'm not attacking you, Dolly. I'm asking legitimate questions that your fans deserve answers to. This is what journalists do. We hold people accountable for their actions and their choices. That's when Dolly's famous composure really started to slip away like sand through fingers. Her eyes flashed with anger and hurt. Journalists? You're a talk show host, Kelly, not an investigative reporter working for some news organization. And even if you were a journalist, there's a way to ask questions with respect and kindness. What you're doing right now isn't journalism. It's an ambush. You lured me here under false pretenses. The audience gasped quietly, the sound rippling through the studio. Some people looked absolutely shocked, their mouths hanging open. Others looked like they wanted to applaud Dolly for standing up for herself, but they stayed silent, afraid to interrupt this increasingly volatile situation. Kelly's face turned red, clearly stung by Dolly's sharp words. An ambush? That's ridiculous. I'm literally just asking you about your own business decisions, things you chose to do. If you can't handle questions about your choices, maybe you shouldn't make controversial deals in the first place. Dolly leaned forward now, her voice rising slightly, the Tennessee accent becoming more pronounced. Controversial? To who? To you? Because from where I'm sitting, the only controversy here is you using your platform to tear down someone who spent 50 years building people up, helping communities, creating jobs. I came here thinking we were going to have a nice conversation, maybe talk about music, maybe share some laughs with your audience. Instead, you want to play gotcha games like some kind of tabloid reporter. Kelly's voice got louder too, matching Dolly's energy and raising the stakes even higher. This isn't a game, Dolly. You're a public figure with massive influence on millions of people. When you make decisions, they affect those people. They look up to you. They trust you. You don't just get to smile and charm your way out of accountability. Accountability? Dolly's voice was sharp now, cutting through the studio like a knife. I've been accountable my entire career. I've given back to my community in ways most people never will. I've created jobs. I've supported education. I've funded literacy programs. I've helped people in ways you can't even imagine. Who are you to question my integrity? Who gave you that right? The audience was riveting in complete silence, absolutely frozen in their seats, watching this unfold like a car accident they couldn't look away from. Every person in that studio could feel the tension crackling in the air like electricity. Kelly stood up from her chair abruptly, clearly agitated and unable to sit still any longer. I'm someone who's not afraid to ask tough questions, even when it's uncomfortable. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do as a host. Dolly stood up too, matching Kelly's energy, facing her directly across the small space between them. Your job is to entertain people, to make them feel good, to celebrate artists and their work and their contributions to the world. Instead, you're using your show as a platform to attack people under the guise of tough questions. There's a huge difference between being tough and being mean, Kelly. And right now, you're being mean. Kelly's hands were shaking slightly at her sides, her entire body tense with emotion. Mean? I'm being mean? You're the one who won't take responsibility for your choices. You hide behind your image, behind your wigs and your smile and your charm, and you think that makes you untouchable. You think nobody can question you. The audience gasped audibly this time, the sound echoing through the studio. Several people had their hands over their mouths in shock. This had gone way beyond uncomfortable television. This was a full-scale confrontation happening in real time, completely unscripted, completely raw. Dolly's face went pale first, then flushed red, her eyes absolutely blazing with anger and hurt. "How dare you?" she said, her voice low and dangerous, trembling with emotion. "How dare you attack me personally when I came here in good faith, when I trusted you?" Kelly wasn't backing down, even as things spiraled further and further out of control. Good faith? You came here to promote your projects and make money, just like you always do. Don't pretend this was some charitable appearance out of the goodness of your heart. "You invited me," Dolly shouted, her voice echoing through the studio, bouncing off the walls. "You asked me to come on your show. Your people called my people, and now you're treating me like I'm some kind of criminal who needs to be interrogated and exposed," Kelly shouted back, her voice just as loud, just as emotional. "Because you won't answer the damn questions. You keep deflecting and playing the victim instead of being honest about your business practices and the compromises you've made." Dolly's chest was heaving with emotion, her face flushed with a mixture of anger and hurt, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "Victim? I'm not playing victim here. I'm being attacked on your show, in front of all these people, in front of your audience who came here to have a good time, and you're calling it journalism. It's bullshit, Kelly, and you know it. You know exactly what you're doing." The audience was in complete shock. Dolly Parton, the woman known worldwide for her kindness and positivity and grace, was swearing on television. Nobody could believe what they were hearing and seeing. Kelly looked momentarily taken aback, her eyes widening, but she recovered quickly, her defenses going up even higher. Finally, some honesty. At least now we're seeing the real you instead of the act. "The real me?" Dolly's voice cracked slightly with the weight of emotion. "The real me has been standing here the whole time trying to have a civil conversation while you ambush me with accusations and personal attacks. The real me is someone who's spent decades being kind to people, helping people, lifting people up, giving back. And this is how you repay that? By tearing me down on your show for ratings?" Kelly crossed her arms defensively across her chest, her jaw set stubbornly. "I'm not tearing you down. I'm asking you to be accountable for your actions, for your choices. If you can't handle that kind of scrutiny, that's on you, not me." Dolly shook her head slowly, her eyes filling with tears of frustration and anger and disappointment. "You know what, Kelly? I thought you were different. I really did. I thought you understood what it meant to be a woman in this industry, to work hard against all odds, to build something meaningful from nothing. But you're just like all the rest. You'll do anything for ratings, even if it means hurting someone who's never done anything but support you and wish you well." Kelly's voice got even louder, cracking slightly with emotion. "Support me? When have you ever supported me? You barely know me. We're not friends." "I know your music," Dolly fired back, her voice rising to match Kelly's volume. "I know your talent. I know your story. I've praised you publicly when people asked about you. I've defended you when people criticized your weight or your personal life. And this is what I get in return? This disrespect? This betrayal?" The studio was completely silent, except for their raised voices echoing off the walls and ceiling. The crew members were frozen in place, not knowing whether to intervene or let this play out, cameras still rolling and capturing every moment of this absolute disaster. Kelly's face was red with anger and maybe embarrassment, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "If you feel disrespected, Maybe you should look at your own actions instead of blaming me for asking legitimate questions that need to be asked. Dolly reached down and unclipped her microphone with shaking hands, her fingers fumbling with the small device. I'm done with this. I'm completely done with you and this situation. I came here in good faith to talk about my work, to connect with your audience, to share some stories, and have a nice time. Instead, you turned this into an attack, into a hit piece. You wanted to make a name for yourself by going after Dolly Parton? Congratulations, Kelly. You did it. You succeeded. Kelly's eyes widened in alarm as she realized what was happening. Wait, Dolly, you can't just walk off. We're in the middle of taping Watch Me. Dolly cut her off, her voice ice cold and final. I've been in this business for 50 years, longer than you've been alive. I've dealt with all kinds of people, all kinds of situations. But I don't have to sit here and take this from you. I don't have to smile and pretend everything's fine while you drag my name through the mud on your show in front of all these people. Kelly took a step forward, her hand reaching out slightly. I wasn't dragging your name through anything. I was trying to have a real conversation, an honest conversation. Dolly held up her hand firmly, stopping Kelly in her tracks. A real conversation involves respect, Kelly. It involves listening, not just attacking. It involves kindness and consideration. You don't want a conversation. You want a spectacle. You want to be the person who took down Dolly Parton, who exposed her, who made her look bad. Well, I won't give you that satisfaction. I refuse. Kelly's voice cracked with emotion, tears forming in her own eyes now. This is my show. You don't just get to walk off because you don't like my questions. That's not how this works. Actually, I do get to walk off, Dolly said firmly, dropping her microphone onto the chair where she'd been sitting. The sound of it hitting the cushion was picked up by the other microphones scattered around the set, creating a muffled thud that echoed through the silent studio. I've earned the right to walk away from situations that don't serve me, that hurt me, that disrespect me, and this definitely doesn't serve me. This is toxic. Kelly was breathing heavily, her face still flushed, her hands balling into fists at her sides. If you walk off now, everyone's going to see you can't handle criticism. Everyone's going to think you're weak. Dolly turned to face Kelly one more time, her expression a complex mixture of anger, sadness, disappointment, and hurt. Let them think whatever they want to think. I know who I am. I know what I've built over 50 years of hard work. I know the good I've done in this world, the lives I've touched, the communities I've helped, and I don't need to prove anything to you or anyone else watching this show. My work speaks for itself. She looked out at the audience, many of whom had tears streaming down their faces, unsure of what they were witnessing. Some were clearly Team Dolly, others looked conflicted, and a few seemed to support Kelly. I'm sorry you all had to witness this, Dolly said directly to them, her voice softer now, but still firm. This isn't what I wanted for today. This isn't the kind of energy I wanted to bring into this space. I hope you understand that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even when it's hard, even when people might judge you for it, even when it means walking away from something. Kelly opened her mouth to respond, to say something, anything, but Dolly was already turning toward the exit, her decision made. Dolly, wait! Kelly called out, her voice desperate now, perhaps realizing the magnitude of what was happening. We can talk about this. We can work this out. But Dolly didn't stop walking. She didn't slow down. She didn't look back at Kelly, or the stage, or any of it. She walked with her head held high, refusing to let this moment break her spirit, her signature heels clicking against the studio floor, each step deliberate and final and full of dignity. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or stay silent, or what the appropriate response was to something like this. Some people started clapping hesitantly, others just watched in stunned disbelief, and still others were crying. Kelly stood alone on the stage, her arms hanging at her sides now, watching Dolly walk away from her show, from this disaster. She looked lost, confused, like she couldn't quite believe what had just happened, or how it had spiraled so completely out of control. The crew members were exchanging panicked glances, their eyes wide, unsure of what to do next or how to handle this unprecedented situation. This had never happened before on her show. Nothing even close to this had ever happened. Dolly reached the door that led off the stage, the same door she had walked through just 20 minutes earlier with a smile and a wave and such positive energy. She paused for the briefest moment, her hand on the door handle, and for a second it seemed like she might turn around, might say one more thing, but she didn't. She pushed through the door without looking back, leaving behind chaos and confusion. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow felt thunderous in the silent studio, final and definitive. Kelly finally moved, after what felt like an eternity of standing frozen, running both hands through her hair repeatedly, looking at the audience with an expression that mixed defiance, regret, confusion, and something else that might have been shame. She opened her mouth to speak, to try to salvage something from this complete disaster, to explain herself or defend her actions, but the words seemed to stick in her throat. What could she possibly say to make this better? What explanation could possibly justify what had just happened? The cameras were still rolling, still capturing every second of this unprecedented moment, every emotion crossing Kelly's face. The audience remained frozen in their seats, unsure of how to react, unsure of what they had just witnessed, unsure if they should leave or stay, or what the protocol was for something like this. Was this real? Did Dolly Parton, one of the most beloved figures in entertainment history, really just walk off the Kelly Clarkson show after a heated argument that got completely out of hand? The answer was yes. This was absolutely real. This had happened. What started as what should have been a joyful celebration of a legendary career, a feel-good interview that everyone would enjoy, had turned into one of the most dramatic confrontations in talk show history. Two beloved entertainers, two women known for their kindness, and their incredible voices and their success, had clashed so badly that one of them walked off the set in the middle of taping. The studio remained in shocked silence as Kelly slowly walked back to her chair and sat down heavily, almost collapsing into it, the weight of what just happened clearly pressing down on her shoulders like a physical burden. Her hands were shaking as she reached for her water glass, taking a long drink, her eyes staring at nothing in particular. The show would have to continue somehow, they still had time to fill, but everyone in that room knew this was the only moment that would matter. This was the moment that would be replayed over and over on social media, dissected frame by commentators, and remembered as one of television's most explosive and unexpected confrontations. Dolly Parton had walked off the Kelly Clarkson show after a heated argument that nobody saw coming, and nothing would ever be quite the same for either of them or for daytime television. The door remained closed, solid and final, separating the stage from wherever Dolly had gone. Kelly sat alone on that stage, surrounded by cameras that kept recording, crew members who avoided making eye contact with her, and a studio audience that looked like they'd just witnessed something they'd never forget. The professional facade that both women had maintained for years had crumbled completely in those 21 seconds that changed everything. The carefully managed television personas had shattered like glass. What remained was just two human beings who genuinely couldn't find common ground, whose conversation had escalated so quickly and so intensely that there was no walking it back, no diplomatic resolution, no publicist statement that could fix what had just happened in front of hundreds of witnesses. What started as a simple appearance on a talk show, what should have been a quick promotional interview with some laughs and some music, had transformed into a full-blown war of words that neither woman had anticipated. It became a clash of perspectives, a public spectacle that neither of them could take back or erase, no matter how much they might want to. The cameras had captured everything, every word, every insult, every accusation, every moment of rage and hurt and frustration. The confrontation was over, the guest was gone, the door was closed, but the weight of it still hung heavy in that studio, like smoke that wouldn't clear. The air felt thick with tension and regret and shock and confusion. And somewhere outside that studio, millions of people would soon be watching, rewinding, recording, and sharing what they had just witnessed. The fallout would be enormous, spreading across every social media platform within minutes, trending worldwide before the show even finished taping. The think pieces would be endless. The commentary would go on for weeks, maybe months. The debate about who was right and who was wrong would consume entertainment news cycles and divide fans. Both women would be dealing with the consequences of this night for a very long time to come. Their relationship, whatever it had been before this moment, was likely destroyed beyond any hope of repair. The trust was broken, the respect was gone, the bridge was burned. And all of it had happened on television, in front of an audience who came expecting joy and laughter, and left with something they'd never forget, something heavy and uncomfortable and real, in a way that most television never is, something that would haunt them. The crew slowly started moving again, like people waking up from a trance or a bad dream, whispering to each other in hushed voices, checking cameras, trying to figure out what came next in this unprecedented situation. Kelly sat in her chair, still processing what had happened, still trying to understand how a simple interview had exploded so completely and so quickly. The audience members started quietly gathering their things, looking at each other with wide eyes full of shock, some already pulling out their phones to text friends and family about what they'd just witnessed firsthand. This was the kind of moment that defines careers and changes public perception forever. This was the kind of confrontation that would be studied in media classes, analyzed by psychologists, and referenced for years whenever people talked about talk show disasters. And somewhere outside that building, Dolly Parton was leaving, probably getting into a car, probably trying to process her own emotions about what had just happened, and how a day that started with such promise and excitement had ended in such disaster and heartbreak and anger.